Hello and welcome to this brand new season of Leaders of Tomorrow, the only enabling platform for small businesses. Over the past 7 years, we've understood what matters the most to you, the small business entrepreneur. And in year 8, we're taking head on two of your most pressing concerns, that of funding and mentoring. I'm Sunanda Jayaseelan, tonight bringing you highlights of an exclusive conversation with V Vaidyanathan. Now, in December 2018, Capital First and IDFC Bank merged to become IDFC First Bank. The merged entity offering now a number of products and services for small businesses as well as their larger counterparts. This merger between an NBFC and a bank is interesting as it was executed in just 11 months, and that too with 99.98% approval from shareholders on both sides. I caught up with the MD and CEO of IDFC First Bank, V Vaidyanathan, to ask him about the merger, to get his takeaways as far as the entire banking space is concerned right now, and also how digitization is transforming the economy and the banking space. Take a listen to those highlights. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us here on the Leaders of Tomorrow. It's been exactly a year since we spoke to you last, and it's been a momentous year for you. Maybe to kick off this interview, that would be a good place to start in terms of just what changes you've seen 2018 and 2019 bring for you at the bank.
For us, it was truly a momentous year. And in the Indian ecosystem, because of the NBFC crisis and the subsequent economic issues, I think there have been just so much of concern around. And in this environment, for us to actually get the merger through, merge with an existing bank, IDFC Bank, and become IDFC First Bank, is a huge, huge deal.
Okay, maybe some of the highlights really of what this year has been like for you, the 2 or 3 of the biggest high points during the year, over everything that has happened, getting that license, getting all the approval through, getting an almost unanimous shareholder go ahead for this decision. What have been those highlights?
Well, big highlights was how quickly the deal happened. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people expected this to be long, but exactly happened in 11 months. That was very efficient. Number 2, the speed at which the approvals came from Competition Commission of India, the Reserve Bank of India. Shareholder approval, 99.98% approval from both shareholders for a publicly listed company with over 8 lakh shareholders is unprecedented. On top of it, almost 100% approval from creditors. It was a dream stuff. So now when the merger actually came through in December, then it was a hard work leading to the merger, but I think the new life of hard work begins again.
Okay, so perhaps maybe 1 or 2 things that this experience has taught you. And every time we speak with you, we love asking you, about any advice and looking back if there's anything that perhaps that you've learned through this that you want to tell our viewers.
The thing that instinctively comes to my mind is that since 8 years, even as Capital First, I was never satisfied keeping an NBFC license alone. And through public mediums, private mediums, even informal discussions with the Reserve Bank of India, I was always looking to become a bank. I think that's one big learning, because I did not know the crisis coming up during the end of 2018, certainly not. But I just needed a platform. So therefore, one of my key learnings is no matter how fantastic our models are, we have to have the right platform. And I think that's one of my key learnings. Okay.
One thing that I do definitely also want to talk about, and would love for you to address over the course of this interview and through this interview, is the fact that there has been some concerns or questions really raised on why perhaps Q on Q for the last 4 quarters, you've seen the kind of losses that the bank has been posting, most recently 600 odd crores. Is there anything that you want to perhaps tell our viewers to say that, yes, this has been happening, but the business, of course, hasn't taken a dent?
I'll tell you what, the erstwhile IDFC Bank and the erstwhile Capital First both had completely different models. Erstwhile Capital First had a model of only financing small entrepreneurs in a very big way, and consumers. The loans of those loans were between 20,000 rupees to 50,000 rupees, and the maximum loan to small entrepreneurs was about 1 or 2 crore rupees. And that is a fast-growing model. The erstwhile IDFC Bank model was financing largely infrastructure and largely wholesale loans, and then also started consumer loans. Now, therefore, there were two different models. So when we put the pieces together, of course, people say assets, you bring assets, IDFC Bank bring assets, so assets plus assets were the liabilities. But the way to address that, as far as we are concerned, is that in the next few years, we are going to focus entirely on liabilities. This is a beautiful bank. I'm so happy we merged. I don't worry about 3 or 4 quarters of losses, some bad loans here and there. It's a fantastic bank because the brand is good. The corporate governance smells great about this bank. I can assure you, we will do nothing in this bank that will ever even remotely touch corporate governance. Sure. We will, in fact, it will be our biggest pride to be top of tops on corporate governance, and that's the bank we'd like to make. We think that if we have in India opportunities unlimited, digitization and skills we have, and if we have corporate governance, we can't go wrong.
You're speaking of the brand, and I just want to go back to that and talk about the fact that you are the bank's biggest brand. And how has that, and how are you, using that brand really to give that sense of sort of confidence, to give that credibility really, because whatever else may be happening per se in the business, the brand, the image, the credibility of the bank, that's still rock solid.
See, the bank by itself is a very strong brand.
Sure.
And it's got a very strong net worth of 18,000 crores, notwithstanding this last quarter loss, and well capitalized, over 14% of tier 1 capital, which is pretty high in India. All things are good. Now, with regard to the brand, if you say I head the bank, right, naturally what I say, what I speak, and how I conduct myself all reflects on the brand. The main thing I tell shareholders and investors and depositors and everybody is that at this bank, you will always see the truth. When we discovered there were 2 loans that we were concerned about, both Dewan Housing and Reliance Capital, and our exposure was quite large at about 1461 crores. We were the first bank which came out and said, we have this exposure, we are providing 75% to it, and we believe it's appropriately provided. I think that sort of a consistency and truthfulness we maintain with shareholders, I think that becomes a very significant part of the brand. The second part of the brand we talk about internally is a very sincere commitment to the customer. You should see the buzz if you had a ear to the wall here. Every employee has been trained to think customer comes first. Sure. It's a very hard culture to build, but I'm really trying to build it here.
Okay, so even as we're talking about the fact that the credibility of the bank, of course, is rock solid. Your personal credibility as someone who has been and seen the kind of changes that IDFC has seen, and the kind of changes that you have and the vision that you really have for this merger, the question still perhaps remains, and I don't know if you get asked this, about what perhaps are, do you think this market is too saturated? Because on one hand you have PSUs, and on the other hand you do have a lot of private banks as well, which perhaps are in some sense similar to what you are doing. How do you answer that?
Actually, every time a set of bank licenses are given, or Kotak and Yes was given, at that time there was also talk about the fact, is the market saturated, because ICICI Bank, HDFC Bank had been there for a very long time. That's not true at all. When we say India's economy is today $2.6 trillion, we want to become $5 trillion in the next 5 or 6 years, just imagine how large India is going to be. And in that space, let me give you a number. Today's consumer credit in India is only 22 lakh crores. There is no reason this will not be 44 lakh crores after 5 years. So the delta of 22 lakh crores is yet to be created. Okay. If you see India's deposit market, it is 190 lakh crores and it is growing by 10% per annum. Imagine after 5 years what the number will be. So it's never too late in India. It's a marathon, and I think India is probably the biggest opportunity in the world today.
Okay, and where do you see yourself in that opportunity?
In a big way, we are very focused on the space we want to operate in. We have set for ourselves a dream or a vision saying that we want to make the finest retail bank in the world. So what does that really mean? That really means that as the Indian consumption economy will pick up over the next maybe 10, 15, 20 years, and you see the long story over the next maybe even 30 or 40 years, this is just the start. And what is specifically aiding us is that as we start our journey, the digitization journey is kicking off at the same time. So we do not have to entirely bother about the fact that we missed the tailwind of the last 15 years. There's a new tailwind of digitization coming, and if we get this, then there's no stopping us.
Time for a quick break here on that note, but on the other side, we'll continue bringing you highlights from that interview with V Vaidyanathan. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. You're with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight bringing you an exclusive interview with an expert voice from the banking space, the MD and CEO of IDFC First Bank, V Vaidyanathan. Fintech, particularly speaking about the banking industry, has changed how everything has been done, especially over the last 2 years. For you, especially at the bank, what does digitization mean? Anything specific that you can give our viewers in terms of how you're using digital to really transform and to be able to reach those customers?
Not just us. Actually, if you see the whole Indian ecosystem, everybody has caught on to this digitization story like crazy, and starting with the government. Now look at the amount of e-NAM and government marketplaces and government e-marketplace, the GEM, the Aadhaar platform, and it's not just India has 1 billion mobile phones and 1 billion Aadhaar.
Yeah.
So what is more powerful is, which is extraordinarily powerful, is that the numbers have got connected between the bank account and the mobile phone and the bank account. And that has made a very powerful proposition for the whole Indian ecosystem. So we are just yet another participants who play in this game.
Okay. Where is the real opportunity though in your mind when it comes to the digital economy?
It's the big opportunity comes, see, basically what is banking? Okay, banking is you're taking money from depositors and you're lending to a set of people who want to borrow. And in our case, largely consumers and entrepreneurs. That's our model. Largely. Now, there's digitization applicable on the side of raising monies. There's digitization applicable in the raise of lending monies. There's digitization applicable in the name of protection, because customers want protection. And today, you don't need to buy insurance the way you did it maybe even 10 years ago. It's all micro insurance is possible, right? You can borrow a loan of just maybe 1,000 rupees, which you could not do that before. You could pay for a piece of potato chips for 5 rupees using a Paytm or some wallet. You could not do that even 5 years ago because you'd use a credit card and the shopkeeper probably say that below 200 there's no transaction. So when we look at banking, whether savings, investments, protection, lending, transactions, everything is going digital.
Okay. Do you think there's enough understanding though of the digital economy outside of the metros? Do you have enough customers who are as excited about digital and fintech and digital transactions in the tier 3 and tier 4 markets?
The answer is yes, because I think a lot of people are now figuring it out, because what's happening, the new generation which is born in the mobile world, and it's not got to do with education. If you notice, if you see even liftmen who are sitting there and going up and down the lifts is using mobile phone and texting all the time. So people are born with that. But there's a big but here. The rural internet penetration is still 25% only. And therefore, I see that as a big opportunity. Sure. When 25 goes to 60 or 70, as it is predicted over the next 5 years, a complete landscape of rural digitization services, including financial services, is waiting to happen. It's not happened yet.
Speaking of the rural markets, you do have a significant exposure really when it comes to that segment really of the population and consumers. Why does that excite you personally?
It excites me personally because I think this is, like we said, banking is about touching lives and influencing in a positive way. And I think when we are dealing with customers who are borrowing small amounts of money from us, as low as 15,000, 20,000, 30,000 rupees, you're really influencing somebody's life in the ecosystem. So we have close to about 2 million customers, largely women, by the way,
okay.
Who have borrowed from us in these rural markets. And we are finding it's a fantastic business because they provide the necessary margins. They are fantastic paymasters, delinquency less than 1%, and also it's great for community.
Okay. Do you get to travel as often as you previously might have to go and sort of meet these consumers in these markets?
Oh, I do. In fact, of course, during the merger, things did get affected, but I do, and I in fact meet some of these. Self-help groups, I meet these customers, I meet even, I once went on a trip and I actually sat down with some of these women borrowers and actually talked to them, and I had really good insights talking to them.
Okay, what perhaps have been some of those insights that maybe you could share with us?
I asked the group of women borrowers in one of those trips, saying that how many of you felt that your lives have improved over the last 7 or 8 years. And surprise, a group of about 30 people, about 28 of them put up their hands. And I asked them why. And the generic answer used to be that, look, nobody in my family ever gave me, to run a small kirana shop or a, biscuits or a chips sale. And, today I'm running a business and I have more respect in society. Someone else said, look, I never educated in my life, but my next generation is now going for education. Someone else said, I never had electricity in my life, but in the last 5 years, I got electricity in my village. Someone else said, look, about the LPG, what the Pradhan Mantri is going. So I generally felt that was something positive. Something very interesting also I noticed.
Okay.
I asked the group of borrowers, how many of them would like a home loan? And it was a surprise. Out of 30 people I asked, about 25 of them put up their hands. So I asked them, okay, what is the price of the home you want to buy? They said rupees 5 lakhs. So I said, how many of you have a margin money of 1 lakh rupees? You'll be surprised that out of 25 hands, about 23 hands fell down. Means they could not afford the margin money, and only 2 people could pay margin money to get the home. So point is, there's so much of demand out there, and I felt good about that.
Data showing, and we speak about this very often on the Leaders of Tomorrow, that the amount of funding which is coming into the ecosystem, which is going towards women-owned businesses, is in single digits. Why perhaps are you seeing that?
I actually, the way I'm looking around and talking, I feel this is changing. I have seen this at 2 levels. One is when I see children of our socio-economic age group, of economic activity. I'm finding that, of course, girls get educated and they want to do business like anyone else, and they go to the best colleges and stuff like that. And when we see down bottom the pyramid, like the example we talked about, I think there also people want to do business and earn a living of their own. I do think this is changing, whether the data tells you or not.
Okay, I want to talk about the big picture and really how things are changing on the ground. And I want to quote Charles Dickens on this. He says, this is the best of times and this is the worst of times. Do you think this is the best of times and the worst of times for small businesses? Because on one hand, you have a lot of government commentary that's coming in, easier access to loans, easier refunds, etc. And on the other hand, you still have the economy, which is in the shape that it is in India. What's really your view on that?
First of all, I love the quote I learned from you today.
Okay.
I think that I actually think it's the best of times. I know there are issues. I don't think anybody can deny them, and we know what's happening to the auto industry, and we know what's happening to the chain and all that. It's around us. But for people who are modulating their business model to suit and play with the times, it's an opportunity. So I think that the good news is, from India's point of view, is that the macros are very strong and still stable. And that's a very important point. I think people are not giving it as much credit as they should. To have inflation at 3 to 4% consistently for a long period of time, it means it gives you the firepower to drop the interest rates and play this game and come out of economic slowdown. Similarly, government borrowing in India is 73%, but stable for the last 3 years. again strong. We know on fronts of current account, I'm oil for trade war reasons. For example, oil might come down and you might be okay on that front. So I think India being macro stability is a good thing.
So I don't know if it's an enviable job or not, but if you had a wish list and if you were to become finance minister for a day, what would it be?
See, before I go there, I must say that this last 5 years, significant reform has happened. I think we should not dismiss that. GST, let me say, direct benefit tax, stoppage of leakages, aligning fuel prices, no subsidy on oil anymore for the common man, common public. I think these are fantastic things that have happened. I would, and IBC and Monetary Policy Committee, the list is long. I think that in the next phase, let me say, next 5 years, I am really requesting and hoping for, let me say, Mr. Modi 2.0 and really blockbuster reforms which will take India to completely another orbit and forever set India into a bigger orbit than where we are today.
Okay, so if you're saying big bang reforms, maybe 2 or 3 of those that are on your wish list that you'd like to see.
See, I think in a very significant way, if we can do land, labor and capital reforms, they're all very well known. We know what are the labor reforms, we know what are the land reforms. In fact, Mr. Modi tried it in his first term after 3 ordinances and I think then didn't work out, then was a pullback. Large-scale privatization, I really can't get it why Air India should lose 5,000 crores a year, why MTNL should lose 5,000 crores a year, why our state-owned banks have to have necessarily 50% ownership by the government. You know, this is a very big time coming for us. Very soon this government will have, both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. I mean, big things can be done. And I think I'm really expecting it from this government. But I must also say that the way the government is now going about financing the small entrepreneur and causing reform at that end, that is really very inspirational, the way they've gone after Startup India.
All right, that's all we managed to pack into the show tonight. If you have any feedback for us, our contact details are coming up. Do let us know. We love hearing from you, the viewer. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.